Hello and welcome to section 2 of our course. Now in this section, we're going to be building a Flask application. It's going to be a very simple hello world application, but then we're going to iterate and take it through various stages, adding more features to it so that we incorporate each and every concept that you might need and will need in your Flask development journey. Now in this particular video, we'll start by building our first ever application. This will be the first ever application you've probably written in Flask if this is your first time taking this course, or if this is your first time using Flask, that is. Now, we want to create a virtual environment. Remember from last time, our virtual environment will separate the environment in which our Flask app is running. So if we have our virtual environment, it will have our application running within that virtual environment. That application will not interrupt or interact with other applications that are stored globally on the machine. So that is packages. We won't have package conflict. That is the Flask package that we want to use, and probably the packages that are installed within your computer. So remember, we always use a virtual environment when we are creating Python applications. We'll store Flask within our virtual environment, and after that, we'll create a simple Hello World application. This section will mainly be using the terminal or command prompt if you're on Windows, and your favorite text editor. I personally prefer using VS Code. I have been using it for like forever now, and it works pretty well for me. However, if you use your own text editor or IDE, e.g. PyCharm, you're free to use it. There really isn't any difference in what we'll be doing and what you'll be doing. Just make sure that you're able to create a new file, save your file as the .py file, and run it from command line. So let's start by opening our command line or terminal if you're on Mac and Linux. First of all, we want to navigate into a projects folder. Now, I am supposed to be in my development, so I will navigate first into my development folder. That is where I have stored this course. So to do that, I just have to type in cd . Now notice I went into this development folder and then into the Flask folder because that is where I keep all my Flask applications. So I'll just run a simple list command just to view all the directories and files that are stored within this directory. Right, now the folder that we want to move into happens to be here. So with that, I'll just have to clear the screen so that we have enough space. So this is the folder that we need to be in, building web apps. Now, if you are working on your own development machine, there's no need for you to create this folder just as it is. You can create it in any way. However, I've just created this folder so that I keep all the code for this course in one place. So the first thing that we want to do is to create our first ever application. So we'll create a folder, hello, that will contain our hello world application. So to do that, we use the make directory command. Now, I've just created and moved into my hello world folder. Now, once I'm in my hello world folder, I want to create my virtual environment. And remember, to create our virtual environment, all we have to do is type in virtual env and the name of the virtual environment. Now, if you do not specify the Python version that you want to use, it will default to the default version of Python that is set within your own, or actually on your machine. And for me, it's actually Python 3. So if I activate my virtual environment, And remember to activate a virtual environment. All we have to do on a Mac and then on Linux is source. However, if you're on a Windows, you would have used something that's quite different. You would have used make project, then work on. However, I trust that you've grasped those concepts from chapter 1, section 1 actually. And if you had not gotten that part, I would advise you to go back to section 1 and review that course. Now that we've activated our virtual environment, let's just test to see which version of Python we have running. And to do that, we have to type Python. And it shows you that we're using Python version 3.6.5. Now that we've verified that we have Python running and our virtual environment is done, we can install Flask. Now, to install Flask, we use pip. And remember, pip is our Python package manager. So to install with pip, it's just calling the name pip, install, and the package name. Now it will start collecting Flask and it will install Flask. As you see, it'll tell you that it has successfully installed Ginger, Markup. Those are all other dependencies that Flask uses and other packages that you find useful in your Flask development. Now that we have our Flask installed, we need to create our Python file. Let me just clear that. So now that we have cleared our screen, we can now start working on building our actual Flask application. Now to do this, we need to use our text editor. So I'll move into my text editor. As you see, it has already opened my Hello World folder, and I'll just move into it and create a new file. Now our file, we'll name it app.py. Just close that. Now, hope that's visible enough. Within our app.py file, we now want to create our first ever Flask application. Now to start using Flask, we need to import it. That's always the first thing. Import Flask so that we start using it. So you can just follow me at this point. That's our Flask application. Now this is a simple Flask application that will just run and render Hello World. Now, I'll start to explain the whole code. The first part, the first line, line number 1, we're just importing Flask from the Flask module. Now, once we have Flask, the Flask class, we want to create an object or an instance of the Flask class. That is, we want to create an object of Flask. So we'll store it in app. That will be our app. So our app will be an object or an instance of the Flask class. Once we have that done, we want to create our first view. Now, I know this might be difficult to understand at this point, but then you just have to relax. A view will show us or will route us to our particular page, to the page that we want to go to. It will show us what we need to see. Now, I will explain. I know if you have prior programming experience and you've used the MVC pattern before, view might mean something different from what I'm going to explain. So I'll explain everything in the next video. But for now, just know that we use this Flask decorator, this Python decorator over here, to route, to signify that this is a view that will route to this particular page that is the home of our server. Soon after this, we'll put in if name underscore underscore name underscore underscore is equals to main app.run. This will just make sure that our Flask app is running. Now, let's go back to a terminal. Right, ls, I see my Flask application there, and let's try running it. Now to run our application, all we have to do is type in Python. And as you see, it will tell you that it's serving Flask app, lazy loading, environment production, debug mode of running on 127.0.1 port 5000. Press Ctrl+C to quit. Now, I'm not going to show you the output of this application in this video. I will show you in the next video. So your assignment for today is to see the output on your own. Then in the next video, we'll go over the output together before jumping into what we need to work on. Let me just explain to you how you might run this. To run this, all you might have to do is just copy this and paste it in your browser. As simple as that.